Dozens of people in a long line that snaked outside the Holocaust Museum waited to see the new exhibition.
Americans' own isolationism in the aftermath of World War I, or the xenophobia and racism and anti-Semitism here in the United States that shape the way we respond to events abroad, and the catastrophe, the economic crisis of the Great Depression. All of those conditions are going to ultimately shape how Americans respond to Nazism.
Interactive maps, poll results and the front pages of newspapers from the time all show that despite knowing about Nazi Germany, Americans were hardly aware of the scale of the mass persecution of Jews. Historian Daniel Green calls this phenomenon a failure of imagination.
Citizens in Indiana reading the Indianapolis Star in September of 1935 could have read about the Nuremberg laws, the laws that stripped Jews of their citizenship in 1935. So the point here is that you didn't have to live in a major metropolitan city, you didn't have to live on the coasts of the United States to be reading about the threat of Nazism. The threat of Nazism was covered all over the United States.
In the 1930s, the United States set strict quotas that limited immigration, but even though many people could enter the country legally, very few refugees were accepted. Each suitcase here represents 5,000 people who were waiting to get an American visa. Too many died without ever getting it.
The waiting list jumps in 1933 from a 3-year waiting list to, by 1939, an 11-year waiting list. There's over 300,000 people on a waiting list for visas for German-born.
In November 1938, Americans heard about the Night of Broken Glass, pogroms aimed at synagogues and small Jewish businesses in Germany. A series of polls was conducted in the US that year. When asked if they approved the actions of the Nazis, 94% of Americans said no. But when asked about letting more German refugees into the US, 71% said they would not want that. Isolationism won. It was only after the defeat of the Nazis in May 1945 that photos of the death camps started to appear in the press, and Americans saw the true scale of the massacre. The exhibition Americans and the Holocaust has sparked interest in the Holocaust and an awareness of dangerous modern parallels.
You see it in the urgency, I think, with which the Clinton administration treated Kosovo and Bosnia, for that matter, when they perceived that there was a possible genocide going on, and even an international reaction to Rwanda in that decade, the 1990s.
The exhibition reminded many about the horrors of the Holocaust and showed once again that silence and the desire to fence oneself off from someone else's tragedy can easily lead to a catastrophe. Anusha Vitisyan for VOA News, Washington.